You have the Via Ferrata equipment, but that serves as a last resort, so you should never risk the fall. This is like maybe the most important rule in Ferrata. So go on just such difficulty that you are sure that you can climb through or pass through, because the falls are very hard and you're going to injure yourself, most likely heavily. You get smashed against the wall, and the Ferrata, the Lanyard and the shock absorber are there just so you don't die, not that you comfortably catch you. So it's quite likely if you fall into it, you end up in the hospital. So it's just a last resort and you should never risk a fall. There's a few things you need to know about the Via Ferratas. One is that a Via Ferrata is always one directional, so it has a direction and everybody who coming need to follow that direction, and it ends somewhere and usually walk down the mountain or hill. Ferratas, at least generally in Europe, are graded for difficulties. There's basically from A, B, C, D, E, F, E and G. A is the easiest and further letters are more difficult. If you're starting up, it's always good to start with an A and progress gradually. So generally, like the A, B and C are relatively easier. The C you will definitely feel, but if you are a beginner, start with A, go through it, and if it felt boring, you can go to B. If you go through it, if it felt boring, you can go to it, but the further difficulty you go, the bigger the gaps are. So generally, as a rule of thumb, if one you felt boring, let's say the C was too boring and too easy for you, then you can progress to D. If you pass a C Ferrata and you feel like, okay, this was decently demanding, then most likely D will not be for you. So I will explain a few common mistakes which happens on the Ferrata and you should avoid it. The most commonest one is the not using the harness, seat harness and the chest harness. The important thing why to use it, because the climbing harness has attachment point below the center of gravity, and what happens when you fall, your upper side or upper part of the body, which is heavier, will bend backwards, and it can injure your backbone. And even if it doesn't injure your backbone, you usually stay hanging backwards, and it takes, in a better case, at least half an hour for a rescue to come. So this is the correct way. When you fall, even if you stay hanging, and it might take quite some time, you let's say broke your hand or whatever hitting the wall, like you relatively comfortable. Another common mistake is overestimating the ability. So basically what happens that you think that you can go on difficult, you arrive to some section, more difficult one, and you get tired and you get so-called mental block that you feel like you cannot move forward, you cannot move backwards, and you just stay there hanging and someone needs to come and take you down. Another common mistake is when you come to Ferrata and you are attached and you attach just one carabiner and the other carabiner stayed attached to a harness. This is very dangerous because you're effectively disabling the shock absorber. So if it would deploy like this, at some point would prevent the shock absorber. Also, the common mistake is to have this seating carabiner attached to the harness. This is also extremely dangerous because, again, the shock absorber is disabled, like it won't work. The reason we need a shock absorber, that without it the body would suffer such a strong force that the internal organs would turn apart. So without it, it's unlikely that someone would survive a Ferrata fall or fall on Ferrata. Another common mistake is that someone comes to the point where it's attached the cable and will take both carabiners at a time and clip it through. That's of course not good, because there is a moment when you are not attached to it and you might slip, or a rock might hit you falling on, or anything could happen. That's why there is two carabiners and a V-shaped lanyard. So you always pass one carabiner at a time. So another common mistake that some people use as a for resting dynamo loop, and what they generally do, that they have it attached to the belay loop of the harness, sometimes even having a knot here, they use this one as a rest. And sometimes it's what often happens that your attachment point and the carabiner where you are clipped for resting is at the same height, and with the Dyneema it's super static, so it doesn't absorb any energy. And if I would have the attachment point at the same height as the carabiner and I would slip and fall, it would get torn. But even if it would not get torn, then my body would suffer such a strong shock that I would likely incur internal bleeding. So this is should not be used. You should always use resting carabiner above the shock absorber. So if you fell or whatever happens, you still have the shock absorber to absorb the fall. So this one is dangerous and should not be used. Another common mistake is when going on ferrata, not keeping enough distance. So you should always bear in mind that someone who is higher up on you can fall, and the fall takes a lot of length, because he would be falling till the carabiner catch the last attachment points, basically falling, catching. Then just this by itself it's around 1.5 meters, and here in the shock absorber around 2 meters. So he will fall basically around 4 meters from the last attachment points. So you should always keep 2 empty sections, or in other words, have no carabiners between 3 points where the steel rope is attached to the wall. It's like 2 empty sections, because if someone would fall on you, you would fall as well and suffer injury. We're going to demonstrate the safety distance, like how each person should climb and what kind of distance should be kept in order to be safe for the next one, or in case the someone above him would incur a fall. Okay, so Andre, go. So now the first section is empty. This is not enough, because if he would fall, he would slide back and end up somewhere here if it would be vertical. Now the 2 section is empty, but if she would move to the 2 sections, there would not be 2 empty sections. So you need to clip 1 more up to be able to progress. So now you can go, because there will be 2 empty sections between you and Andre. And now you need to wait till Andre clip himself up there, and now you can go.